Who wishes that you made a little bit more money at your job? Yes, most of us feel undercompensated for the contribution that we're making. We wish we made more money. Of course we do. And what's actually very interesting, because we get kind of hung up on thinking, I need more money. If my boss would give me a raise, I would be happier. And our brains have told us that if we make more money, we will actually be happier. The studies don't correlate to that up to a certain point. Up to a certain point, we obviously don't want to be undercompensated, and we do need to earn money. And then what's really fascinating is that it matters more to us. Our happiness at our job goes up more if we like who we work with. That becomes a more important contributing factor to our happiness at our job and our happiness in our life than if we're making more money. And we know that to be true. When we stop and think about it, we go, okay, yeah, we know what it's like to be annoyed, exhausted, weary of all the interactions, tired of the type of interactions we're having, to be in a stressful, toxic environment. We know that no amount of money you throw at us, we might keep surviving there, but no amount of money you throw at us is going to make us excited to go to work, want to be there, want to give our best, want to be there for everybody else and be present and fully hopeful and excited and eager and all those things that we want to be. Multiple studies have been done. I was looking at all the different research studies for my upcoming book, The Business of Friendship, Making the Most of the Relationships Where We Spend Most of Our Time. And studies, many of them, were showing how if we were able to choose between like a $10,000 raise, but we wouldn't like who we worked with, versus not making the raise and enjoying who we work with, the majority of us are wise and we choose that one. We know that just making that extra money isn't going to do for us what can happen when we feel like we enjoy the people we work with and we spend the most time with. It's surprising to so many of us when we actually stop and think about how significant it is whether we like the people we're spending most of our time with. And these are the people that impact us in big, big ways. And so I just wanted to highlight a little bit for why more of us might want to lean in to building better friendships, to feeling like we belong. We get to help participate in whether we belong. That's not something some organization does for us necessarily. It's something each one of us can show up and to say, how can I build better friendships here? How can I make sure I have the support system in place? How can I participate in appreciation with each other and with my colleagues and my coworkers? And so we want to, for our sake, we want to be happier and healthier in our lives. And if we want that, then we want better relationships at work. Let me give you the top 5 reasons of why I would make that case. I could come up with 20 to 30 for you, but we'll try to kind of group them together a little bit. And that first one is what I was referencing earlier. You will like your job more. You will be happier at work. No matter what your job is, you're going to be more excited to show up there, less likely to call in sick, more comfortable brainstorming, more wanting to cover for your friends and participate in like having each other's backs. You're going to enjoy whatever it is you do, wherever it is you do it, enjoy it more if you feel like you like the people you do it with. I want you to get the raise, but if I really want you happy at work, if I could, I'd just give you a friend. And that would end up doing more for you than getting that raise. I can't give you a friend, but I can teach you how to make that friend, and you can do it. So if we want to be happier where we spend most of our time, so think about that. It's not just, jobs are not something just to survive and to say, well, I'll just make it up in the off hours. This is the bulk of our lives. This is where if we're happy here, it overflows to everything else. And if we're not happy here, if we don't feel connected here, think about how much we have to have this area do all of that for us to even start to balance that out. So hugely important that we love the people we work with and build up a more meaningful enjoyment at that job, which then helps us do number 2, which is be healthier. This is no small thing. We are walking around wanting to be healthy. And so many of us, I hear the opposite. We hear that my job is causing my hair to fall out. I'm gaining weight. I feel like my lower back hurts. I always have neck tension. We often talk about all the things that work is doing to damage our bodies and our physical health. But if we have friends in that place, if we feel supported, if we feel connected, it actually helps add to our physical health. which is huge. You've seen the studies, you've heard me preach this. If we feel disconnected, it's more damaging to our health than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's worse on your health than being a lifelong alcoholic. It's twice as harmful on your health than being obese. It's worse than if you don't exercise. It is one of the most, if not the most significant factor to your health is how you answer the question, how supported and appreciated and loved do I feel in my life? And while we want that in your off work hours, we definitely want you being able to answer a strong yes at work where it can not only take away from your health, but contribute to your physical health and give you more of the sense of boost of energy and feeling supported and feeling seen and appreciated. And what that does for you internally is huge. Absolutely huge. Which leads us to point number 3. Physical health is a really, really big one. If you want to live long, if you want to be healthy, have a high quality of life, you want friends at work. But number 3 is tied to that too, and it's our mental health. It's one thing to be physically healthy. It's another thing. We want to be alert. We want to be quick. We want to be clear. We want to be eager and happy. We don't want to feel depressed or lethargic and low energy and foggy. We want to show up and feel like our mental health is strong. And that is so linked, again, to how supported we feel in our lives. There was one study that shows it takes MRI brain scans of us when we're under stress. And red splotches light up in the brain, showing all the cortisol, the stress chemical going through our brain. And then the exact same stressors in our lives. But if this time we feel supported by somebody that we care about, then our brain only lights up about 1/3 of the red splotches on the brain. Which means that having friends doesn't reduce the actual stressors in our lives, but it does protect our body from absorbing the impact of those stressors. Let that sink in for a minute. If I were to ask you where you experience the most stress in your life, most of us would report our jobs being number 1 or number 2 as being the place that is causing a lot of our stress. If we could actually protect your body like a buffer from like being a protective barrier to you not actually taking in that stress, your brain not triggering the stress, your body not sending out the chemical stress all through your body and doing that damage, if we could actually protect you from the impact of that stress, would you want that? The more stress we have in our jobs, the more we need to feel supported, the more we need to feel like we're together, the more we need to feel like we belong. From a mental health perspective, we are so much better off when we feel like we are not in it by ourselves. So important. Which leads to point number 4, and that is that the more we're in relationship, the more hopeful we feel. So it's not just protecting us from stress. We actually show up hopeful. It makes us more resilient. We actually show up with more kindness and compassion. All these things that actually make us want to show up and do more. It's like the energy comes from feeling supported and seen and having those friendships in our lives. We want to do things for the people we love. We're excited to be with them. We want to participate in those interactions with them. There was one study that showed that if you had to be at the bottom of a hill and had a weighted backpack on you, and you had to guess the incline of the hill. If you do it alone, you guess the incline of the hill steeper than if a friend is standing next to you. Then suddenly the hill doesn't look quite so steep. It seems like a small little experiment, but when you really think about the ramifications of that, what it would mean to have a workforce that felt a little more hopeful, a workforce that didn't see the challenges and feel quite as overwhelmed by them, a workforce that actually showed up with a sense of like, we can do this, it's not that bad. Those are big things. And that happens when we feel supported. When we feel like we have that friend, those friends, that relationship, that bond. It matters. We show up feeling like we can do that. That is not that big of a challenge. The more challenging your workplace, the more deadlines, the more expectations, the higher sales numbers, the more innovation you have to do, the more hard stuff you have to do where you need a workforce that's resilient and bounces back from hard things. The more your workplace has those things, the more you want to build better relationships to help protect that and to help have people show up with more hope. And number 5, I would just kind of put it in the category, and this is dear and near to my heart, is the category is that when we have more friends at work, we actually feel less lonely in our entire lives. I say entire lives because even if, we can go and try to have all the friends we want over here in this personal life category. But the truth of the matter is that even if you make time for one more girls' night a week, even if you make the one more meaningful phone call on your way home from work, even if you have one more guys' weekend where you go golfing or something, like those are so important, and I've been advocating those for a super duper long time. But if you really want to feel less lonely at work, those are like small pebbles that matter. But if you show up and feel like the bulk of your time, where you spend almost every day with the same people many times, if we're showing up there and feeling loved and supported and appreciated in that space, it will do far more for us than any one little thing that we can kind of try to tweak in this other bucket that has to compete with all the other things in our lives, all the errands and the chores and the working out and the binge watching and the family obligations. We can do this here, and we will end up feeling less lonely overall. So often when we feel lonely, we just keep thinking, I just need to go over here and make another friend. No, the bigger answer is when we feel lonely, most of us are around people at work in some form or another. And the bigger question is, how can I make those interactions matter more? How can I show up and support them better? How can I show up and show appreciation? How can I receive those things? It's virtually impossible to go through life feeling like we have all the meaningful relationships we need in our lives if we're not getting it at work. It matters. It's a huge piece of our showing up and feeling less lonely in this life. And so I hope one or more of those reasons were compelling to you. I hope that it helps you lean in a little bit and to be curious about what you can do for your health, for your happiness, for your mental health, for the enjoyment of your job, for feeling less lonely in life, for feeling supported, for feeling seen, for feeling appreciated. If we can enjoy and build better relationships where we spend most of our time. I want that for you. I loved writing this book, and I cannot wait to share it with you. I can't wait to keep teaching you what we can all do to build better relationships where we spend most of our time.